And what is going on, Devils fans? It is, as always, your host, your best friend, your confidant, your number one source, Neil Villapiano, and welcome to a Four Nations Face-Off edition of the Devil's State of Mind podcast, right here on the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as SportsWire Radio, the best place to get everything you need to know about your New Jersey Devils, and especially your New Jersey Devils who are currently in the Four Nations Faceoff. And as always, Devils fans, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check this episode out and everything that I do here on the Devil's State of Mind podcast. I greatly appreciate it. Shout out to all of the guests that I've had on the last couple of episodes. There is no guest here for this episode, so you're just going to have to deal with me today on this one. But thank you guys, as always, for taking time out of your day to hang out with me and check out the episode, whether you're here on YouTube or if you're on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Shout out also, as always, to our lovely sponsors down below. We got DraftKings Sportsbook. And let me tell you something, guys. This is a great time to get in on the huge cash prizes that DraftKings has to offer. You know, with the Four Nations going on right now, the NBA, we're going to get right back into the main playoff push as well as the NHL. You got college basketball in full swing and so much more. And with all that going on, DraftKings, number one place to get in on these huge cash prizes. And when you sign up with our promo code THPN and you bet $5, just $5, you get $200 instantly in risk-free bets as well. So it is the best deal out there. So again, sign up with DraftKings and use our promo code THPN. And shout out to DraftKings as always. And also, shout out to our friends over at Tom's River Brewing, the host and the founder, creator, however term you want to use, for Stick Toss, the official beer of the New Jersey Devils. Make sure you guys go get your Stick Toss and cheer on your New Jersey Devils wherever you can get them, whether at the Prudential Center, at Tom's River Brewing, or anywhere that they sell it. Go get yourself some Stick Toss and tell them Neil Villapiano sent you. So shout out to DraftKings Sportsbook, and as always, shout out to Tom's River Brewing as well, both of our sponsors. Yes, as obviously mentioned several times already, we are currently in the middle of the Four Nations Faceoff. I am recording this at 12:20 p.m. Eastern on February 17, 2025. In a little less than an hour from now, you will have Eric Halla and Team Finland going up against Team Canada in both teams' third and final matchup of the round robin. And we are really into a very interesting final round robin day of this tournament that we'll get into in just a second. Also, Jack Hughes and Team USA will take on Jesper Bratt and Team Sweden tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are there for both games. Should be really fun as the Four Nations Faceoff has now moved to TD Garden in Boston. So this should be very exciting here on this President's Day. Also, we're going to talk about another player that has entered into the Devils rumor chat. And I will tell you why I believe that he is a pretty close to perfect fit for the Devils' top six if the Devils were to go and acquire him. So we'll talk about him in a little bit. So, as always, Devils fans, we have a bunch to get to here on the Devil's State of Mind podcast. So let's not waste any more time and get rolling. And we will get rolling and drop the puck again with recapping what has happened so far up to this point with the Four Nations Faceoff. So you start with talking about the United States of America, who have been absolutely dominant through their first two games, a 6-1 thrashing over Finland in their first game. And then just a couple nights ago, in the biggest USA-Canada matchup we've had in quite some time, the United States came back and won 3-1. And with that win, they have now qualified for the Four Nations Faceoff final, which will be this upcoming Thursday. And they will face one of Canada, Sweden, or Finland. So the way that it's going right now is that USA is in first place with 6 points, winning both of their games in regulation, and Canada, Finland, and Sweden are all tied with 2 points at this point. So it really is going to come down to, there's a lot of different scenarios that could go down. We may have a deciding factor by the time we get to the USA-Sweden game, but if we don't, that game's going to be just as exciting here. So We don't know yet who Jack Hughes in the United States will face in that final game, but by the time you guys are probably listening to this episode, we may very well know. But I want to talk a little bit more about that USA Canada game a couple days ago. What really has been the talking point, not just in the hockey world, but in just the whole sports world right now, is the three fights that happened within 9 seconds of this game getting underway. Brady Kachuk, Matthew Kachuk, JT Miller, and all them getting into it right away, getting the crowd going, getting them excited. And it has been the talk of everybody. I have been all over social media the last couple of days, and people who are not even hockey people, like JJ Watt, who granted did play hockey one time, but soon to be Hall of Fame defensive end, was talking about it. I saw NFL reporters, NBA reporters talking about it. I mean, I saw so many different types of people. I was at a basketball game at Madison Square Garden on Sunday, this past Sunday, and they were talking about the game in the stands. I mean, it was phenomenal. And I said on Twitter that if you are a diehard hockey fan, this you have to feel your most prideful because of just the fact that the NHL got exactly what it needed from this game. An opportunity for everybody to talk about it. And you know what? It was more popular than the NBA All-Star weekend events that happened prior to the All-Star game. Granted, I know that the slam dunk competition was very popular, but still, the talking point of the sports world has been the three crazy fights that happened at the beginning of the USA Canada game. It was just all over. It was awesome. And to top it all off, I saw this from the ESPN PR Twitter account that said the NHL Four Nations Faceoff USA Canada game delivered 4.4 million viewers. This is the most viewed non Stanley Cup final hockey telecast since 2019. Also, in the actual image that they show here, there was a plus 473% versus ESPN's World Cup of Hockey USA Canada game 8 years ago, or actually 9 years ago, 2016, and then a plus 369% versus NHL's on ABC average this season. And again, as mentioned, the most viewed non Stanley Cup final hockey telecast since 2019. And in a way, the biggest people you have to thank for that is probably the Kachuk brothers. Brady and Matthew Kachuk have been awesome since this tournament got underway, and they have been scoring, making big hits, getting into fights, really just bringing that excitement. And I just want to say that the NHL should never go back to the All-Star game after seeing this. You should never. You should find every year, other than the Olympic year, to find a competition like this and keep this going so that you have continuous, competitive, prideful type of games instead of the BS All-Star weekend that we see all the time, not just in the NHL, but in the NBA as well. And in the NFL, certainly with the ridiculousness of this Pro Bowl with all this nonsense. All this has been way too gimmicky. What the NHL did, they nailed it on the head. And they don't do it very often, but they got it right. They got it right and turned this into one of the best on best tournaments we have seen in a long, long time. And so I give them a lot of credit. I do hope in the near future that we get more countries involved. They also announced that the World Cup of Hockey is coming back in 2028. I'm so excited for that. I hope that we get countries like Russia and Slovakia and Czechia and countries like that back into it. I would love to see, although they said it wasn't going to happen, I still would love to see maybe a Team Europe or a Team North America just to make this a truly best on best exciting tournament. But they have done a phenomenal job with this Four Nations face-off. I give them so much credit for getting hockey to be the number one thing talked about the last couple of days. And hopefully that can continue with the two games happening today and then the final on Thursday. I'm so excited about what this tournament has done and getting us excited for the NHL players to go back to the Olympics next year in Milano. So, great job by the NHL with regards to this. But going back to the Devils players that are involved, Jack Hughes has been playing on that top line with Austin Matthews and Jake Gensel. He does have one assist. He got an assist in the game against Finland on a goal, secondary assist. He didn't have the world's greatest game in the game against Canada, but fortunately, he'll have two more games left to really get going. But what I've seen so far from Jack Hughes, he looks relaxed. He's having fun, and he gets to play with some of the top players in the entire league. And hopefully, as I mentioned in an article last week on Pucks and Pitchforks, that this will help elevate Jack Hughes' game to another level. Also, it may push Tom Fitzgerald, obviously our general manager and an assistant general manager with Team USA, to consider trying to make a bigger push to getting Jack Hughes that top scoring help on the top six, which will lead into the rumor about a certain player that maybe could be that guy for Jack Hughes on his wing. But I think Hughes has had a really, really solid tournament. He's looked good in many different areas. I'm excited to see what he can do in these last two games. Jesper Bratt, he also does have an assist. He got one on a really, really nice feed in the first game between Sweden and Canada. Didn't do as much in the second game, but again, we'll see what he could do against Jack Hughes in the USA later on tonight. But he also has been playing on a top line. He's on the second power play unit. There is a lot of confidence and trust in those top two guys for their country from the Devils, which is awesome. Eric Kalla, helping out with Team Finland, not doing as much. He did have a breakaway opportunity in the game against USA, but he did not score. But he's obviously laid a couple hits, done a good job at blocking shots, and ultimately doing what we as Devils fans have really appreciated about his game, winning faceoffs, and that's important. And now they go into a big matchup in about 30 minutes against against Canada, where they have an opportunity to potentially get to that final, which would be pretty awesome for Hull and Finland, who is projected to finish in dead last in this tournament, but they are not going down without a fight. So those are the two games that are coming up today, and that's where the Devils players are, and that's awesome. Should also mention as well that probably there's a good chance that, well, I mean, it's not even a good chance. One of one of either Jesper Bratt or Eric Holla is going to end up having their tournament end today, and they'll probably fly back to New Jersey. And according to Amanda Stein of NJD.TV, the Devils will be beginning practice again starting tomorrow. So that's going to be exciting. That'll be the first chance that we get to see some updates with regards to Nico Hischier, maybe Jacob Markstrom, and maybe Jonas Siegenthaler. We shall see. But we know that there's a good chance that Nico Hischier at least will be back. With Jacob Markstrom, maybe it's going to be another week. We'll have to see. But it's going to be exciting just to see the guys back on the ice. Not fully complete, because then you'll end up having at least one guy still playing in the tournament. But nonetheless, we are getting back into it as this upcoming Saturday, the Devils are finally back at home against the Dallas Stars in their first game back from the break. And we'll see if they've used this break to their advantage. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what they can do. So again, I just want to quickly say before, we move on and get into our ad reads, just want to again shout out to Jack Hughes for his play so far, and just being so representing of not just USA hockey but also of the New Jersey Devils as well. I mean, he has really, really been awesome so far, and it's great to see, and we're really hoping that he can find a way to get some more points, maybe get a couple goals in these last two games. Shout out to Jesper Bratt as well, just continuing to be awesome, and for him to finally get a chance to play on this international stage and be the leading point getter for Team Sweden going into this tournament, I think is just phenomenal in its own right. So good on him. And obviously shout out to Eric Hall as well with Team Finland. And, again, I know that he hasn't done a whole lot, but there isn't much I think that Finland was probably expecting from him. But he, along with the rest of that Finnish team, have just found ways to grind things out. They got that big overtime win against Sweden a couple days ago with that Mikael Granlund goal. But, hey, we'll see what Eric Holla and Finland could do in this big matchup against Canada going into today. So that's your Four Nations Face-Off recap as of now. And by next week, we'll definitely have the full recap of that. And also, we'll have a chance to talk about a couple of Devils games that are coming up this weekend. Really, really excited for all of that. So let me quickly give another shout out to our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook, and then we will shift into our other topic today, and that is quickly talking about someone who has now jumped into the Devils' rumor mill as a potential for the Devils' top six. So, talking about my friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook, this NHL season has been as predictable as a puck rolling on its edge. No one knows where it's going, but that just means that there's time for your favorite team to figure things out and games left for you to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. It really is that simple. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, place your first bet, and you're done. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers, again, bet $5, you get $150 in bonus bets instantly. And all you have to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. So now let's talk a little bit about a player that has come up over the last couple of days and a guy that the Devils should 1000% be in on. And I think that it's fair to say they probably are in on him in terms of being interested. And that is Seattle Kraken forward Jared McCann. So Jacob Solar of Sportsnet, who covers the Winnipeg Jets, reported last Tuesday that the Seattle Kraken forward could be made available before the trade deadline. Now, he also went on to mention that he felt that it would be a really good fit for the Winnipeg Jets. I'm here to tell you that Jared McCann, from a top six scoring perspective, makes so much sense for this Devils team. I know in the last episode when I had my good buddy David Decker on, we were talking about Ryan Donato being a perfect fit as well, but he's a perfect fit for that bottom six and that third C position. Jared McCann is a perfect fit for the Devils in terms of a top six winger for either just Jack Hughes or Nico Hischier, probably more Jack Hughes. McCann is a versatile scoring forward who can both kill penalties and play center if needed. He's also had a really solid year in terms of putting up goals and points, 14 goals, 42 points, and a plus minus rating of 7. This is coming off after a really solid year where he had 29 goals and 62 points in 80 games last year. And then the year before that, in 2022-23, he set career highs with 40 goals and 70 points that year. So Jared McCann can score. He can find the back of the net, but he's also very reliable in his own defensive zone as well and winning faceoffs. So this is a guy that can do a little bit of everything. And to me, it just makes so much sense for what the Devils are looking for, what they need to get here. I think it would just make so much sense for the Devils to make a push for Jared McCann. Now the question becomes, well, what's the situation with his contract? Because that's always something that'll come up. So he's 28 years of age. So he's right in the prime of his career, which is great. He carries a $5 million AAV until the end of the 26-27 season. So you would essentially have him for 2.5 years or 2.25 years if you were to acquire him right now. So with that in mind, the two things that come up is this. Number one is that it's been reported that the Kraken may make Jared McCann available, which to me feels like if they may make him available, then it's likely that they probably have made him available in all rights. So the other thing to keep in mind is what would the Devils have to give up? Well, we don't really know what the Kraken would be looking for, but my guess is that they would probably be looking for a fairly decent package when it comes to getting Jared McCann because of the fact that he is, he has several years left on term. And I think that that's kind of the thing you have to keep in mind with this is that when a guy has term, that makes it a little bit more challenging for other teams because they know that they'll have to give up um, much more to acquire that player. That's kind of the thing that we have to look at. And I want to bring up from my good buddy Alex Chauvency of Pucks and Pitchforks, and he writes for several other. Also, he has his own Substack, so make sure you go check it out. He brought up this trade a couple months ago. So we're going back. So this article that he put out came back on December 17th. So it's exactly 2 months ago that he put this out. He made a trade proposal of Jared McCann to the Devils for Dawson Mercer and a 2025 second round pick. And he put in a little description that reads, the Seattle Kraken are in no man's land and might look to make changes ahead of the trade deadline. Though Jared McCann's name is not out there right now, it is now, he's someone the Devils should target for a scoring upgrade if he becomes available. McCann is having another solid season. At this point, he had 11 goals and 26 points. It's a lot different. And again, he writes, what's enticing about McCann is he's under contract through 26-27 with a $5.5 million cap hit. And they could, and Chauvency would continue to say, hypothetically, the Devils could get 3 playoff runs from him if they acquire him ahead of this trade deadline upcoming. The argument against acquiring McCann and including Mercer is that you think the latter could become Jared McCann. Perhaps, but McCann is a proven 30-goal scorer, and he's even hit 40 once in his career. Including a first from McCann is too much since you're swapping Mercer for him. The Devils have 3 second-round picks in 2025, so send whichever will be the highest to the Kraken. That doesn't cut it. A 2026 first with a top 5 or top 10 protection should be on the table. You might not think McCann is worth that, but he is one of the more underrated scorers in the NHL. He's a legit 30-30 candidate every season and is under team control for potentially 3 playoff runs. If you trade Mercer, that's the type of move to consider. So the original article was talking about 4 types of trades that could involve Dawson Mercer moving him. I still think that could end up making the most sense because you now have Dawson Mercer on that longer term contract, and he's a young guy that the Kraken could get, and he could develop with them with a little bit lesser stakes. And you look at some of the moves the Kraken made. I mean, you get Capo Caco for essentially nothing, and he's done a lot better and is starting to develop more. Maybe that's the same thing with Dawson Mercer. Am I ready to give up on Dawson Mercer? Part of me is saying yes because he is still continuing to struggle. He's not a play driver. He is basically a guy that is going to ride the coattails of others, i.e. Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, etc. He needs to have a guy that drives the play for him to put him in that position to score. So with that in mind, you look at Jared McCann and you say Jared McCann is a little bit more of a guy that can push the play and can be more consistent scoring. And again, as Chauvency put out, if you're banking on the hope that Mercer is going to be like McCann, I can understand not moving Dawson Mercer. However, you have to get to a point, especially when you're now in the compete window with the core that you have to start making some moves that may become a little bit more risky, but they need to be big moves to really get this team over the hump and get more consistent scoring. So if the Devils were to have to give up Dawson Mercer and a second round pick for Jared McCann, here's the way you look at it. As much as obviously it would be unfortunate to give up on Dawson Mercer after, so much that he's done for the organization since he got drafted, he still has yet to miss a game, knock on wood. You're getting Jared McCann, who's a little bit older, but also has several years left on his contract. And with the salary cap going up, that 5.5 cap hit is not that bad. That's the way that I look at it. And you're getting more of a proven goal scorer right now that can play on Jack's wing than Dawson Mercer. And then you could move Andre Palat down to a third line winger position that could give the Devils more depth. And then Bratt and Jack are not, slowed down, so to speak, by Andre Palat's inability to be consistent when it comes to scoring. So that's the way that I look at it. At the end of the day, the NHL is a business, and you got to do things that may not, please everybody, and getting rid of fan favorites to some people is obviously very hard. And I get that. That's what happens when you're a fan. But if the opportunity is there to acquire Jared McCann and you're not giving up a ton, you're giving up Dawson Mercer, yes, and you're giving up that second round pick, but you also have 2 other second round picks and you're replacing Dawson Mercer with a more proven goal scorer in Jared McCann. Personally, to me, I think it just makes too much sense. I think this is an absolute move that Tom Fitzgerald needs to make, and the sooner he does it, the better. That's the way I look at it. So bottom line is that I would really like to see the Devils make a push to acquire Jared McCann and at a get him into this lineup because I think he would help the Devils tremendously. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below here on YouTube, and also just wherever you listen to podcasts. Just hit me up on socials at Devil State of Mind on Instagram and at Devil State over on Twitter as well. You know that I love talking with you guys about your thoughts on all things New Jersey Devils. But on that note, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this quick Four Nations Face-Off mainly focused episode. Thank you guys, as always, for taking some time to check this episode out. Make sure to leave a like on YouTube. Also, subscribe as well if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you get updated every time a new episode comes out. And also, go subscribe over on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you happen to subscribe on Apple or Spotify, do me a favor and leave a 5-star rating on either one of them. Really helps continue to grow the podcast here as we move along. But again, really, really excited for the rest of this Four Nations face-off. But more importantly, I'm very excited that Devils hockey is back this week as we get ready for the final 23-game stretch here of the season to get ourselves into the playoffs and get going for what should be a really, really exciting next couple of months. So thank you guys as always, and I'll see you in the next episode. And as always, Devils fans, make sure to rock on.